everyone, welcome. Today I'm going to be looking into a lab with you guys. It's called the Habitable Planet, and it's looking into different codominant species and the way the ecosystem interacts with the different population and food chains. So yeah, this is quite a complicated lab, and so I won't be going into too much detail. The purpose of it is for you to explore, to try out the different kinds of webs and the results, and so I'm very excited to be able to share this with you. The link will be down in the description, so please feel free to open them, and there will be a lab paper document that we can work on as we go along as well. So if you look at the website, it says A Habitable Planet, a systems approach to environmental science, and you can see some of the lesson plans here. I'll be skipping the lessons that they give and opening the simulator, which should give you this page. And now you can really go ahead and make your own food web. This is a very interesting stimulation because it allows you to have a very complicated food chain, and then you can get rid of all of them by doing this. That undoes the relationship so that they're not eating, for example, omnivore A anymore. And so you can experiment with the different food webs, and then you can click run, which will give you the population change over the next year, or the next 100 days, sorry. And so the populations all start off, it depends on the simulation, I believe, but I believe that your starting population for the plant should be 5,000 for A and B and 1,000 for C. And then your starting population for the different herbivores should likely be like 1,500 for herbivore A. For omnivore A, it should be about 100. And for the top predator, it should be about around 10. And so you can look into the different plant species that the different herbivores can eat, and then the omnivores that will eat the plant species, as well as the animals and the top predator. And you can do lots of different rounds and try to predict what will happen, predict the population changes, and then simulate it, and then look at the modifications that were made in order to bring it to the perfect ecosystem balance. And I think the very important thing that you can learn through this lab is mainly two things. So first of all, you understand that the natural ecosystem has a lot of fluctuations and a lot of interconnectedness within it between the species that really cannot be fundamentally broken down by human reasoning, saying, okay, so omnivore B eats C, and that's how that works. It's really suggesting that at a much larger scale, with hundreds of thousands of omnivores and herbivores and plants and top predators, that natural scientists in the modern era cannot arrive towards a simplified understanding of natural ecosystems. And so the process of finding this natural equilibrium that can perfectly sustain the population of all species is very, very difficult. And some do suggest that it is almost impossible. And so, if we want to move towards making a more economical and or more eco-friendly human model, it would really be dependent on honoring the system, honoring the fluctuations, honoring the connectedness of each animals and plants, right? And embracing the interconnectedness and the challenge there is would be the first step. That was my takeaway, and I think I want you to think about that as you begin experimenting with this. Another thing is you can really look into the human impacts of this. If, for example, we break this single chain, let me break this single chain between omnivore, the top predators, and the omnivores, and then we rerun this, right? We have a completely different graph for omnivore A, for example. It was, I believe it was extinct earlier on, and now it's reaching 1500s, more than any other species. The top predator has died out. And so these kind of changes really allow you to understand the radical ways by which human beings can alter the ecosystems and cause certain populations to become to decline, to increase. And so, for example, if global warming increases the atmospheric temperature and it makes it impossible for plant A to live on. You would have a completely different ecosystem now. You would have completely different animals living. You would have different population makeups. And so it's so easy for us to tip this whole system into inequality and a lack of balance that can be detrimental to all the species. And so those are kind of the two takeaways that I had. And as you experiment with the different plants and producers and herbivores and top predators, and you introduce them slowly bit by bit, you experiment with the numbers, I want you to be thinking about the impact that we as humans, who are playing this game, but also as humans that have impact on the wider ecosystem, are having. And yeah, there's kind of impacts that we can potentially have in our daily decisions and our purchases of products and in our career even. And so yeah, those are some takeaways and those are some foods for thought for you. And I hope that was an interesting kind of introduction to the lab. I really encourage that you look into the lab paper and you mess around with this a bit. It's really a great time to think about ecology, and I am very honored to be sharing this with you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.